everyone, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Mentors. And today I have a huge honor of welcoming Gronya Somerville, Australia's top badminton specialist. So, welcome, Gronya.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, well, as usual, I written down a short bio, but I have to read from it because you guys have such long achievements. So, um, at 25 years of age, Gronya is one of Australia's and by extension Oceania's highest ranked players in the BWF World Rankings. At the moment, she is currently number 26 in the world in women's doubles and 51 in mixed doubles. She's eight-time Oceania champion, two-time Canada Open champion, and Dutch Open champion. She's also the holder of several BWF International Challenges and Series titles, which include wins in Nepal, California, Norway, and Norway, just to name a few. So, did I get all of the stats right?
Yeah, I think that's most of them. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's become a bit of a tradition to start each episode with a rapid fire um, round if you're down for that.
Yeah, sure.
Do you prefer breakfast, lunch, or dinner?
Breakfast.
Favorite movie?
Salt.
Do you prefer to text or call?
Previously text, but now call.
If you weren't able to play badminton, what do you think the next sport you would have been in would have been? I don't know if I said that right.
Maybe like volleyball or handball.
What's your favorite Netflix series to binge right now?
The latest I finished is the latest one I finished is Bridgerton.
Oh yeah, I heard a lot of people talking about that.
Yeah, it was different to what I had watched previously.
What about your favorite junk food?
Probably ice cream.
Favorite tournament to play in?
I like so many different places. Probably one of my favorite is Hong Kong and New Zealand. But I've heard other players say that Japan Open and French Open are the best, but I've never played them.
Oh, okay. A couple more. Do you prefer footwork or multi-drills?
Multi.
Sprints or a long run?
Sprints.
And then the final one, if you had no fears for a day, what would you do?
Probably all the adrenaline sport things like
extreme sports and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're gonna go a bit into like your start, just in case there's anyone who's watching may not know you. How old were you when you started playing badminton, and how did that come about?
I kind of started by chance because I'd never really heard of badminton. And in Australia at that time, they were running a talent search program. So the Badminton Australia had got some funding to do a national talent identification program. So my PE teacher, when I was in primary school, gave me a flyer saying, come try out for this badminton program. You don't need any experience. And at that time I was 12 years old. So I went to this fitness tryout day where we did like running, jumping, competitive games, and they kind of assessed you and cut down the girls to about, I think, 60 or so. And then over the next 6 to 9 months, they kept cutting us down and then they started training us. So I would have only started training properly about 13 years old, which in badminton is like a little bit late compared to some of the Asian countries. So that's how I started. And as soon as I hit it on that first day, I just fell in love, and I thought it was like the greatest sport. And yeah, I was obsessed from then on.
Uh, wow, you started quite late. I started at around the same age, so it's really comforting that you started that late and now you're like within the top 30 in the world in women's doubles.
Yeah. I mean, when I started, there was like a 9-year-old girl who was like, she'd been playing since when she was 4 or 5, and she was so good. And she beat
Wow.
me for like the next, 4 or 5 years while I was playing.
Just out of curiosity, how did you make that decision to specialize in the doubles category?
It kind of just came about because I got a lot of injuries as I was growing. I had a lot of knee injuries and ankle injuries. And so when I wasn't able to train because I had to rest, I would do like standing drills or sitting ones. And naturally, they were more just the doubles kind of drills. So, like driving, front court, that kind of thing. So then when I was able to play, I was a lot better at doubles. And then as I kind of kept getting injuries, me and my coaches were just like, oh, maybe you should only play doubles so that there's less risk of injury. So it just kind of happened naturally. It wasn't really a just difficult choice for me or anything like that.
Okay. And what would you say, like, if you had to advise a young player in terms of like, if they want to go professionally and would have to, choose the discipline that they would want to play in, is there any specific like skill sets or attributes that you would advise them to look at so that they can make the right decision in a way?
I would say it depends like what you're enjoying and what you're good at. I mean, if you're doing well in all three and you enjoy all three, then I think just keep doing that as long as you can, and until the point where you feel like you want to try and excel in something more specific. But otherwise, I think one thing that's really good to look at is your body type and what the top players are like, because you might be really good in your country at singles, but on the world circuit, if your body type doesn't really fit in with all the best players, then it might be better to like specialize in doubles, and you might have a better chance at doing well in that as opposed to singles. And just getting advice from your peers, other people in national team, coaches, and what they think would suit you as well.
Well, coming from like a small badminton nation, uh, can you share your experience balancing the school and badminton work life? And also, how did you, well, we all know that it's very stressful and a very tedious process. How did you prioritize your mental health during that period?
Yeah, so for me, I always wanted to do very well at school as well. So when I was in grade 10, so my last 3 years of high school, I changed to a sports school that had badminton program. So that made it easier to do morning training like 5:30 to 8 a.m. And then I would go to school, and then I could train afterwards some days from like 3:30 to 5:30 as well. So that made it a lot easier. And then like as one of our elective classes, we had strength and conditioning, which was a good time to fit that in as well. And then as it got kind of to my last 2 years of high school, where there's more pressure on, exams and getting your final grade, I split up my study a bit. So I did it slightly accelerated and did 2 of my last year subjects in my second last year. So that meant that
Mm,
year was a bit more stressful, but it also meant that the next year I had a lot more free time to train and travel, and it was easier to balance it that way. So I think as a junior, it's really important to be in good communication with your coach, your school, and your parents, and like try and plan it well, because you don't want it to just come around and you haven't planned it and it's too late to change your subjects and do all that kind of stuff. So I think having a good plan with everyone is really important. In terms of mental health, yeah, I mean, because I put pressure on myself for the study, it was definitely a bit tough. But I think for me, badminton was always my escape, and knowing I'd have tournaments coming up where I could travel and kind of have more fun and just focus on badminton has always been like my reset, and like how to kind of ease my stress. I don't think when I was younger, I was that knowledgeable about mental health or like how to cope with stuff. So yeah, it was more just sport was my outlet.
Oh, okay. Well, I think the answer would be yes, but in terms of like transitioning from being a junior player into a senior player, yeah, what were some of the sacrifices that you had to make?
Um, I guess the main sacrifice is just when you start traveling so much that you just miss a lot of big events and special occasions. But outside of that, I mean, it doesn't always feel like a sacrifice because you just want to do badminton and you're happy to kind of do badminton as opposed to going to some party or whatever it is. So I guess it didn't seem like heaps of sacrifices because I enjoyed it and I wanted to do it. I mean, it definitely slowed down my uni. I only just finished a 3-year degree, which took me like 7 or 8 years. So, I mean, it meant that I couldn't get into work straight away because I was still traveling and I couldn't, obviously, because I'm in exercise science. So I'm like, I would be a PT or something like that. And it's hard to be with clients if then I just have to leave for like a few weeks so often. So it affects that in a lot of ways and the job opportunities that I have. And yeah.
Yeah. So, growing up, I'm sure you probably had a few inspirations and, going through that sort of stressful time in high school. What were some of the inspirations in badminton that you looked up to?
Most of the time when I was younger, I actually didn't follow like the high level badminton. So I didn't even know really who like Lindan and some of the top players were. So for me, I read more books about Australian athletes from different sports like hurdlers, swimmers, that kind of thing. So I kind of drew more inspiration from them just because I knew them. And it wasn't until maybe I was like 16 or 17 that I started to watch high level badminton and learn who the badminton stars were. So yeah, I wasn't too influenced by the world class players at that time.
Okay. Well, what are some of the pros and cons coming from Australia, you know, probably, not being one of the uh, powerhouses in badminton?
I think the pros being from a smaller country definitely that you kind of get prioritized more, so you're not competing against as many athletes to get the coach's attention, get into teams. So it's a bit easier in that aspect. And then you also, depending on your coach, you might have more say in what you do at training and the kind of drills, and then things like choices of which tournaments you want to play and that kind of thing. It's more personalized to you as a player. Whereas in the
Yeah.
big Asian teams, it's very generic. Everyone does the same thing, and there's more politics around like if the coach likes you, who will they pick as your partner, all that kind of thing. But then I guess conversely, the cons are that in a smaller country, you don't have such a big team to spar with. So a lot of the time we have to play with the boys because there's not as many girls that are good to spar with. Whereas, the big Asian countries, they might have like Japan has 4 women's
Yeah.
doubles in the top 10 and that kind of thing. Like the quality is just amazing there. And then of course they have like a really nice community feel, and like when they live at the dorms with the players, they really have a sense of family there. Whereas for us, everyone still has their own lives and is has their own study and home life, and then they just come together for training. So sometimes we're not as close knit as the big countries, and it makes it harder when we are traveling and yeah, when we get like homesick, that kind of thing, because we don't have many people around us.
Yeah. And do you, well, I know I've heard like people like Michelle Lee talk about like when she used to travel alone and go on tour, it would always be like a struggle, um, like training while being on tour. So, did you ever have that problem as well?
Yeah, we're having that problem here at Thailand Open as well because you're not really meant to train with other countries. So it's only, I mean, the fact that we're a doubles partnership helps because we'll always have each other. But even so, yeah, it gets a bit boring. And of course, we want to practice together on the same side of the net. So it's a bit difficult. But it's a good way to kind of become friends with other countries and connect with other countries to spar and go to training camps overseas as well.
What is your daily routine like being a professional badminton player? Well, I know it may have been different before COVID, so yeah, you could probably go into that a bit.
I guess typically now I would go train in the morning, 6:30 to 8:30 a.m. So I wake up at about 5 a.m., get ready for half an hour, drive for half an hour to training, and then warm up for half an hour before that starts at 6:30. And then afterwards, I would stay maybe half an hour afterwards and do stretching and cool down. Then I go get physio or massage for an hour, then do my gym for an hour to an hour and a half. Then I'd probably come home, have lunch at home, maybe do like grocery shopping on the way. And then right now I've started doing some digital marketing for Badminton Australia. So I might do that for an hour and a half, reply to some emails, um, just life admin stuff. And then I might do another workout in the afternoon, like a Pilates or a body weight kind of thing at home. Otherwise, I'll probably just prepare dinner and chill out the rest of the night with like my family, walk the dog, that kind of thing.
Wow, that's quite hectic.
And then like when I was at uni, that would be different. So I'd finish like training and then I'd straight away go to uni and have class. And then I might do my gym when I was at uni, come home and study. And it was like I've had very different stages of my life. So it's always changing. And as an athlete, you have to be super adaptable to that. And yeah.
What do you think is the most important thing athletes should work on in terms of like bridging the gap in between, the transition from juniors to seniors and being like a more established player?
So for me, when I was growing up, it was always about trying to chase the next person in front of me, and always this image that I'm like need to catch up. So that always motivated me to work harder and put in the extra effort, because ultimately it's just all about how hard you work, how much time you put in, and how smart you are with your training to get those improvements. So I think hard work really pays off, and getting to training early, making sure your body is not getting injured, asking the coaches for extra training, doing more, just doing more and kind of everything always helped me improve. And then I think a really big thing that juniors can overlook is trying to find your weaknesses to improve them. And I kind of mention this quite often because a lot of juniors, obviously everyone likes to do what they're good at and what they're comfortable with, but that doesn't help you grow and improve. What I find, like I had one coach who was just really good at kind of picking out what wasn't good with me, like not in a bad way, but just saying, you can improve in this. And it's having that critical thinking really helps you know what to work on, because you can do the same thing over and over again and it might be a bit more consistent. But if there's something that is bad quality every time and you can improve it just by working on it a bit longer and you weren't aware of it, and then becoming aware of it can really just change a lot of things. So I found that watching top players, seeing how they do things and comparing it to like a video of myself and being like, oh, I can do this differently, or I need to hit this better quality, or I need to be faster here, that helped me improve a lot growing up.
Well, I like the parts where you say, like asking the coaches and for like more tips or like advice in general. Do you have any advice for like someone who's like more on the shy side? I mean, growing up, that was one of my biggest problems because I wasn't able to speak to them. I mean, now I'm growing out of it, and that's the whole reason why I've created this series. So, do you have any tips for those sort of athletes?
Yeah, I think like I was the opposite, so I never had any shame. I would ask stupid questions all the time and annoy them as much as I could. But I think the whole thing you need to think about is that you're trying to do this to improve your badminton, and you don't want to go home at night and think, damn it, like I could have learned more if I would just ask. So for me, I hate having regrets. So I'd rather just ask, and maybe I get a bad answer or I feel embarrassed or something, but at least I did it.
Yeah.
And the main thing to know is that coaches, like, they care about the athlete, right? They always want to help you improve. They want what's best for you. And out of all the coaches I've ever had, no one has ever, been like, oh, I don't want to help you, or said no, or not answered me. They always, hopefully they always come from a good place and they want to help you. And you showing that you want to learn more and improve more can only be a good thing. So even when I travel overseas to Denmark, to Malaysia, to wherever, I'd always ask the coaches extra questions about, oh, what do you think is my weakness, or what can I improve on, or why does this not work? And yeah, just know that it's always coming from a place where you're trying to better yourself. So coaches usually support that and admire it even.
And I heard you mention, like training in Denmark and Malaysia. I know that Europe and Asia have very big differences in terms of like the training styles. So what would you say is like the different pieces of valuable lessons that you learned from training in Europe and then training in Asia?
So when we were able to train at the Denmark national team, which was incredible, and we were there for quite a while, like a month or so. And the main thing that we were so shocked by is like the quality and the intensity at training. Like every single player is so switched on. They're doing short, sharp drills to have the quality super high, and they're not allowing other players to make mistakes. So it's really, you feel the pressure and it's expected of you to be switched on and not make mistakes. Whereas I feel like in smaller countries, it's very casual, and, people just like make mistakes, pick up another shuttle, go again kind of thing. Whereas they only train for an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours max. So they just make everything such good quality, and the sessions perfectly planned out. They hardly rest between sets. Like in Australia or Asia, they sit down a lot and they'll take a break and then they'll go and do another long drill. Whereas when I was in Europe, it was just like you're just there to train the whole 1 hour and a half to 2 hours. Like you get rest, but you might be feeding or doing something. You're not really just sitting down and wasting time. And then so in Asia, like I said, it's a lot longer drills. A lot of the time, even though you're training for a long time, you're just feeding other players, because they might do drills where it's one person's working and 4 people are feeding. So when you get your rotation to work, you've only worked, like 20 minutes in a whole 2-hour session. So the quality is very different, and yeah, it's a lot longer and slower, but I mean, they do so much of it and they have so many sessions that they can cover all the different areas and kind of get the quality in enough to be able to have them improving, because they can, do specific skill sessions, do specific physical sessions, do specific drill sessions, and then they have that sparring level as well that's good enough that the quality's there. So I think as a junior, I think as a junior, it's good to get both experiences and learn and see what the difference is for yourself.
Okay, and based on like your playing style or you as an athlete, which is there a training style that you prefer?
Training style. I personally really love like technical sessions. I think that's where I improve the most. I think obviously in the drills and other things, that's where you can implement it. But I think if you don't have the skill and the technique, then it doesn't matter how fit you are, how, tactically smart you are. If you can't play the shots that you want and hit the quality, then there's no point training for a long rally if the rally ends within 5 shots because you don't have the skill there. So I think coming from a smaller country, technical sessions can be overlooked because it's often low intensity. And if you only have so many training sessions in the week, you want to prioritize other things sometimes. So that's, probably one of my favorite training things to train.
Okay, and sort of stemming from that, what is the hardest thing for you um in terms of like training overall for badminton? What is the hardest thing for you physically to do?
Um, Realistically, I mean, like multi-sessions are always hard. We used to have running intervals that were like super hard, but we have this one that we do called 25 shot rally, where you have to hit like 25 shots and you can't make a mistake, and then you get a rest and then you go again. And I find that mentally quite hard, because once you like start making mistakes, you really feel like the pressure and you get frustrated, and it's just kind of this internal battle. So I find that really hard. Whereas I feel multi, it's just you're just hitting it and you're just moving. So it's like it's more just doing as opposed to thinking. Whereas I feel like when you need to think and be physical, that's when it becomes really tough, and like the concentration and inner battle starts a bit.
What are some of the techniques that you use, like anytime there's like anytime you're in a tournament and uh you're in the middle of a match and for some reason negative thoughts start to enter? What do you do in those moments?
Um, I guess when I start to have negative self-talk, I just try and come back to the goal of this is that I want to win, and I want to do whatever it takes to win. And I know that negative self-talk doesn't help that. So if I really wanted to win, then I could tell myself not to do that. And I know the things that help me play better. So I need to do those and not fall into, oh, like I'm so bad, I can't do this, like they're so much better than me, all that kind of things. Just knowing that that's not helping. So why waste energy and my time on that, and just trying to get back into this positive self-talk and knowing that I can do it.
How do you recover physically in between matches during a tournament so that your performance level remains high?
Yeah, so I'm really like quite on top of recovery because I've had so many injuries. So I make sure that I cool down well. I ice anything if I need to. I eat a good meal. I always try and get really good sleep, but I find it sometimes quite hard after matches. If my mind's still buzzing and I'm thinking about the games, that can be hard. So I try and sleep, and then yeah, maybe some sort of cold bath if there's the facilities for it. Otherwise, just pretty much rest and eat well, and then prepare for the next day.
And I think, uh, uh, well, more so junior athletes tend to overlook the nutrition part for sports. So, well, I know there wouldn't be like a specific diet for everyone to follow as everyone's bodies is so different. But do you have any like general tips uh, as to, let's say, pre-match and post-match meals and so on?
Yeah. I think as a junior, it's quite hard because you just generally don't get educated on it, and you just get fed by your parents, or, just eat whatever you like. So it's good if you can see a nutritionist, or maybe you're like can suggest to your badminton association to have a nutritionist talk to you guys about recovery and that kind of thing. Because I never had the knowledge. Like when we went to Europe, I would gain like 3 kilos because I just eat pizza and I didn't understand it. So yeah, once I got educated, definitely helped. So pretty much before meals, before matches, you want to try and have a big meal like 2 to 3 hours before, like your breakfast or your lunch. And then maybe half an hour before, if you are hungry, then have like a smaller snack, like a banana, a bar, a muesli bar, that kind of thing. And for the main meals, I kind of just stick to half a plate of like veggies, a quarter plate of protein, and a quarter of carbs. Maybe I'll add more carbs if I'm like hungrier, that kind of thing. Just I try to eat more what I feel as opposed to always like exactly what is right, because if you don't enjoy it, then it can ruin the whole process.
Yeah.
And then after the match, that's when you want like something high protein, like maybe a chocolate milk or a smoothie, or yeah, or just a meal if you are hungry. But I think just trying to think of the quality of foods and not really worry too much about the timing is better.
Yeah, I think for me too, I really neglected the nutrition part in my younger junior days, and it was so hard for me, like in terms of, well, I don't eat a lot, so that was my main problem. And then to anytime I'm stressed, well, there was like a period, well, a phase in my life where anytime I was stressed, I wouldn't eat. So I think uh, I really suffered from that, and well, now I really needed to like sort of make up for it, like with supplements and stuff,
Right,
because
yeah.
yeah, anytime I'm stressed, I would always get like tired as well, and balancing school and badminton, that wouldn't
Yeah.
have been a good combination to have that with. So yeah.
A lot of it just comes with experience and like learning those triggers and that kind of thing for yourself as well. So it can't all just be fixed very quickly.
Just how important it is for an athlete to have a routine, like let's say post and pre-match and that kind of thing.
I don't really believe that it's super important. I think that a lot of players, like if they have the level and the mindset, then they can kind of switch it on and off. I I, I mean, what psychologists probably um, don't agree with that, maybe, but I think that like, yeah, it's yeah, I don't know. I think that you can like prepare differently, like because as athletes, we're always in different settings as well. Sometimes you don't have a
Yeah,
warm up court. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you have an early match and you can't wake up that early, and sometimes you have a night match. So I think you have to be adaptable and also like be comfortable with knowing you can still play regardless of if you haven't done everything exactly as your routine.
yeah,
But I think, yeah, having the non-negotiables that you have to do each time, like making sure you've gotten there an hour before, you've had time to foam roll, you've had time to warm up, you have your game plan, and then afterwards you have time to cool down and make sure you eat well, that kind of thing. But I think not getting too stuck on it can help with being adaptable to a lot of situations that you might be in.
yeah. And I think too that there might be a lot of athletes like what the moment that they can't stick to their routine, that's when they can be easily thrown off. So yeah, I think it's really well to be adaptable. Do you have any like tips or words of encouragement for young athletes who are uh, at the moment struggling with balance in their school and badminton?
I think for me, those two things together were always a priority, but there was still one that had to be a bit more of a priority. So when something was getting serious, I would kind of have to pick one. So, during exam time, I might have to leave training a little bit early because I wanted to study more. Or leading up to a tournament, I wouldn't study as much because I wanted to focus on the tournament. So you do have to kind of sometimes prioritize one and the other, but I think you can definitely, if you organize your time well, you can definitely excel at both. And I think it's definitely better to continue doing both than to stop badminton or stop school. I think it sets you up later in life to do better in um, whichever one you choose. And I think seeing people stop badminton in like their final year of high school, I think it's a lot harder to come back. And it's also a really fun year, usually, to play tournaments and to be around everyone that still plays at that age.
Okay. Um, Now we're going to switch things up to a lighter topic. What is something you didn't expect in the life of a badminton player?
I think a lot of people don't realize at tournaments how much downtime you have. So like you just train and then that's it. You just do nothing the rest of the day pretty much. Like you're in a foreign country, there's not like most of us don't really work when we travel, so there's really not that much you do. Like gym and then on match day you just go play a match and that's it. So actually do it like people might think athlete life is hard, but at tournaments it's actually like a holiday for people because you really don't do much besides train and play.
And then too now it's like you can't really sightsee because of COVID. I know you guys are still quarantined.
Yeah. So it's definitely like a little detox retreat. Like we can only eat the food they give us, and you just like chill in your bed. So you just gotta be friends with yourself.
Okay. And what is your most memorable tournament experience? Like, do you have a favorite anecdote?
Um, it's a tough one. Probably one of my favorite memories is when we won. Canada Open for the first time. That was the first one big tournament that we won, and it was kind of unexpected. And our coach at the time, he'd supported us so well, and was like a father figure to us, and we were just all so happy. And we had to race straight to the airport to catch our flight to America for the US Open. And we were like speeding, trying to catch our flight, and we just had music blasting, and we were all singing and waving our medals around, and it was just like a fun memory. So that one's pretty special.
Although I think you probably answered this one, but if you have anything else to add, what are some of the things that you do in your downtime away from badminton that helps you to recharge?
During COVID, one of the things that I really enjoyed that I didn't used to was walking my dog a lot. So spending time with my family, my boyfriend, my dog, just exploring our local neighborhood more. Whereas usually I just train so much that I don't even want to go walk the dog. I'm too tired to even walk. So that was really nice. I love getting out in nature, going to the beach, going on hikes, getting out in the countryside. Being away from the city really helps reset me and brings energy back to me when I'm getting very stressed and overworked. And then just hobbies that I have, I like Netflix. I like playing instruments every now and then, and just hanging out with friends because I don't see them enough usually.
I think a lot of people also struggle in terms of finding themselves outside of the sport, in terms of their identity, they can't really separate themselves from, let's say, let's say for example me, and me the athlete, it's always that they always see themselves as an athlete in a sense, and you know their self-worth is sort of tied to how well they do in tournaments. So have you ever experienced something like that, in terms of let's say struggling with confidence because you may not have performed well in a particular tournament or string of tournaments, and how do you go about trying to disassociate yourself sometimes from you the athlete and you as a normal human being?
Yeah. I think it's definitely hard when badminton is your life, because it obviously is the priority, and when it's not going well, it affects a lot of your world, and obviously your attitude and mood and how you view yourself. But I think, I don't know, I've never really had a big issue with it, because I've always known it's a process. And I think thinking about the long-term journey is really important, especially coming from smaller countries. We usually peak a lot later than, some of the Asians that are winning world champs when they're 17 years old and that kind of thing. So I think having that knowledge, just bringing back to, it's there's still time ahead for the journey, and not getting so attached to every small loss or win along the way. Of course, you need to learn from it, but I think, not having people around you that don't only value your badminton as well is really important. All your friends and family who just know you for you and not you as the athlete is really important. But I always found that, because I always continued my study, so that was something really good to fall back on as, some other part of my life that I was succeeding in or progressing in. And when I did defer my study, I did find it hard to dissociate that. So that's when I started learning Chinese, because I still wanted something that I was progressing in that wasn't badminton. So I think it's good to find a hobby, a short course, something else that you can progress in. And especially study is good, because, or a part-time job, because it's financially can help you for when you're playing, or for if you get injured, or just having a backup plan. Even now as I get older, and especially being a doubles player, I'm starting to think a lot more of my career and having something to fall back on, so that the transition is not as hard.
Mentally preparing for a match, and do you think things like visualization and journaling, well, I don't know if you do it, but do you think those things are important an important part of the process?
I haven't really done journaling, but I think visualization is good for getting the feeling of the match because it's something that's hard to replicate in training. The nervousness, like the pressure you feel, and I think using visualization and remembering past matches is a good way to get more comfortable with that feeling. Um, and then I always found that like analysis um, helps me prepare and gets me more confident for the match, but also watching past matches of myself where we play well just reminds us, oh, we can do it. This is how we do it. And we've done it before. We can do it again kind of thing. Because sometimes when you get into a match and, the first 11 points are really bad, then you start doubting yourself and you're like, oh, maybe like I can't do it anymore or whatever. But having that knowledge that you've just watched a match where you've played really well and this is what you did, it can help you like have that confidence again.
It was, well, I think I started probably recording myself for matches quite late, and it's really hard for me to like look back at matches because I don't know. It's kind of like, when you hear your voice on the phone or whatever it is, and you always cringe for some reason. Uh, so do you think like recording yourself and uh like reviewing your matches and stuff is an important part for improvement?
Yeah, I think definitely. I don't think it has to be maybe every match, but I think some big ones where you know something was different or like it was a close match or you were challenged in certain ways. I think it's really good to review it and learn from it. And then I would probably just do it once or twice with a coach and take the notes. And then from there, you can cut it up to the points where you play well, and then you just watch the ones where you play well. So then you don't have to watch the bad ones, and you can just think you're awesome. That's all you do.
I think in Trinidad is probably not that popular. I mean, I know a lot of like the top athletes always talk about, they doing match analysis and stuff like that. And well, I could only speak for Trinidad. It's like no one really records themselves, and it's like probably just like a few of us. So uh, could be a really good way to help improve and sort of like raise the level of badminton players because you really see the mistakes when you look at yourself again because you can't really. I mean, when you're on court, you're probably thinking you're doing all the right things, and when you watch it, you realize, okay, you see the little holes in your game and so on.
Yeah, yeah. Because you can always think you're doing one thing, and then you see that you're doing a totally different thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely a better perspective and a good way of thinking. Even like technical training, I think is really important to do that sometimes to see what you're doing with stroke and then compare it to other people.
Well, I think this question is mostly for like those athletes who are from countries where, you know, the backing for badminton isn't that big. So, do you have any pieces of advice for those who want to travel more, but they are struggling to like make themselves attractive to sponsors so that they can get the opportunity to get points and so on?
I think, yeah, it's tough. I think if you really want to play, you just need to try every avenue that you can find ways to get funding. So for me, I would write letters to try and just reduce my costs at the start. So like trying to ask a physio if they'll sponsor you, like just kind of reaching out to friends and family, knowing that maybe if you know somebody who's quite well off or has a good business, seeing if they can just sponsor you for like one tournament accommodation and just starting small as a junior because you obviously don't have a big profile and you don't have much you can offer a business in terms of more sales or that kind of thing. So trying to be reasonable with what you ask for, but initially just trying to find ways to cut down your costs that you have in your daily life, like trying to see if somebody could sponsor you for stringing, or seeing what you can offer them in return. Maybe you need to help do a coaching session for their staff or something, or just thinking of ways that you can offer value and help them. Or maybe your physio wants a model for some YouTube videos for injuries, and you can help show that kind of. So trying to understand that they're not obligated to help you, and they're kind of doing you a favor, and seeing what you can do in return is really important. And then from there, obviously, I've used social media quite well to get a following and to get sponsors, but that was all very by chance, and it just kind of happened naturally. But then from there, I put in like a lot of time and effort to build it and to post regularly and to see what people liked and try and keep relevant. And then like actively still reaching out to sponsors and emailing a lot of people and finding brands who might be interested. So a lot of stuff still went on behind the scene, and I had to be very active and not shy in asking, because the worst thing they can say is no. So if you don't ask, that it's still a no, right? So for me, it was always just, I didn't want to have any regrets, and I just wanted to do as much as I could. And like only good things could really come of it. I get my name out there, and then so what. I think, if you're at the age where you're into social media, trying to post regularly about tournament updates, what you're doing for your training, and just having a base to start with, because the more time you do it, the bigger it will grow. And of course, like YouTube is a great thing if you have the time and you're interested. Then making content and making like something different and edgy as a young person would be really appreciated in the badminton world, I think.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. You with YouTube. So how has that experience been like? Sharing your experience with being a top badminton player.
So like with the YouTube, I've been pretty inconsistent with it. The one thing I'm meant to be with it is consistent, and I haven't been, so it hasn't been great. The thing is that it just takes a lot of time with editing, and I don't enjoy that. So I was trying to find other people to do it, and it was just, it was a slow process. But I think next year, or this year, I will get back into it and try and make more badminton content, and maybe help BWF with some stuff as well.
Okay. And it's probably like tailored to, well, it's such a like personal question in terms of like body type again. But what do you think is the right age to incorporate like the strength part of training into your program?
So I started it when I went to the sports school. So I probably was, no, actually, I think I started it earlier when I just started the training program, the talent identification program. So it would have been about 14, 15. And I think, it was all kind of just technique and body weight stuff initially. And then I probably got into weights around like light weights, maybe 16 years old. But I think like that's been the biggest thing that has helped me reduce my injuries, because my legs were just so weak. I was very pigeon-toed. My glutes were very weak. And as my legs have bulked up a lot, I've reduced my injuries, and like my biomechanics is a lot better. So I think I always advocate for strength training and reducing injuries. So I think it's not something to be scared of, and as long as you can kind of get advice and are doing it the right way, then it's only going to benefit your badminton.
Yeah, I think I started quite late, and in terms of I had a lot of injuries as well, and I think, well, now that I've started, I like physically feel stronger, like my body can take the training load, and it's like I wish I probably started it a bit sooner so that I could have prevented injuries and probably pushed myself a bit more. Um, Anything that you'd like to say to the athletes who are still in the stay-at-home order and um, can't really get that much court time as pre-COVID? What do you think the most important thing for them to do is?
I think it's just a good time to figure out different things that you can improve from home, and especially things that you might have not ever kind of dedicated the time to. So the main things that come to mind is like definitely getting on top of your injuries and making sure you're doing the rehab and all that stuff that you might not spend as much time on when you're training normally. So, you know, if you have a sore shoulder, making sure you're doing all your TheraBand stuff, like, you know, glute strengthening, whatever it is. And then the other stuff that you can do quite easily at home is heavy racket stuff. So improving your wrist strength and finger power, and that kind of thing. Yeah, there's not that much else you can do besides running and fitness as well. But yeah, I'd probably focus on like hand power and injuries if I was a younger person right now.
Yeah, I know there may be a lot of athletes who are like struggling to because they've probably been behind on their goals because of the pandemic and so on. So how what would you say to help them in terms of like reshifting that focus and like not really looking forward at their goals because a lot of it may not be achievable right now due to the lack of tournaments or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think you just if you can't set as many goals in badminton, I think it's then the time to try and set them in other areas of your life. Maybe you want to learn a new language or you want to do better in school or whatever it is. I think, of course, badminton is important to have goals, but maybe it's just a chance that you have to prioritize some other areas of your life that you have overlooked. And like for me last year, of course, I couldn't train as much, but I was able to spend so much time with my family, and that meant so much to me because usually I'm traveling half the year for tournaments, and so I really just like treasured that time and wasn't too harsh on my badminton and the fact that I couldn't train as much and like tried to do what I could, but I wasn't so critical that I wasn't meeting the standards that I was previously because I didn't have control over it.
Well, thanks so much for being a part of this. And do you have any last words or anything you want to add to this conversation?
I guess to all the juniors out there, just to like try your best and just have no regrets and make sure you're enjoying it. And the juniors was the best time of my life, so really most of it.
Okay. Well, thanks, Grania, for being a part of this. And if anyone who's watching this wants to get in touch with you, where can they reach you or, stay up to date with your life and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Gronya Somerville, on Facebook at Gronya Somerville Official, on YouTube at Gronya Somerville, and then you can also email me at contact.gronyasomerville@gmail.com and I'll get back to you personally. So any of those.
Okay. Well, thanks again, and thanks for everyone for watching. And if you want any more content like this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys for episode 4.